It feels like you're leaving a bad relationship, putting a period at the end, leaving the pain behind. You promise yourself, never again, next time will be different, I've learned. But time passes, and suddenly you catch yourself in that familiar feeling. Anxiety again, tension again, the same doubts about yourself around someone else, and the uncomfortable question arises, why does this story repeat itself, even when you genuinely wanted something different? Usually, we blame partners, luck, or bad people. But the truth is deeper and more painful. Often, it's not just about meeting similar people. We step into the same roles, trigger the same dynamics, and replay the same script ourselves. Why we choose familiar pain over unknown happiness. People rarely choose what's better. They choose what's familiar. From a neurobiological perspective, the brain is wired to minimize uncertainty, not maximize happiness. Even if a familiar scenario causes pain, it still feels safer than the unknown. Attachment psychology shows that people tend to repeat emotionally familiar patterns in relationships, even toxic ones. Not because they like suffering, but because their nervous system is trained for that kind of closeness. If love was once associated with anxiety, distance, tension, or fighting for attention, the brain starts seeing that as normal. Calm, stable, respectful relationships can feel boring, foreign, or not real. Our psyche reaches for the predictable, even if the predictable hurts. How love patterns form and why they drive partner choice. Each of us has a love pattern, an unconscious blueprint for what relationships should be like. It doesn't come from logic or common sense, but from repeated emotional experiences. Psychologists call this a relationship blueprint, an internal template for intimacy the brain uses as a guide when choosing a partner. We may think we choose with our heart or mind, but often we follow familiar emotional patterns. That's why it feels like we're changing people, but in reality, only the face changes. The script stays the same. Why chemistry, trauma, and addiction feel like love. What we call chemistry often isn't love. It's the nervous system reacting to familiar stress. Toxic relationships trigger dopamine, cortisol, and adrenaline, the same systems activated in addiction and thrill anticipation. Emotional swings, hot-cold, distance-close, create strong attachment that the brain misinterprets as passion. Neuropsychology research shows that unstable emotional dynamics form stronger attachment than stability, not because it's healthy, but because the brain becomes addicted to the highs and relief after tension. Calm relationships can feel bland, while drama feels real. Until this difference is understood, toxicity will keep feeling like attraction. Why we ignore red flags even when we know better. Red flags rarely look obviously terrible. They're usually subtle signals we justify, romanticize, or downplay. For example, someone dismisses your feelings, but you say they're just blunt. They disappear for days and come back. You call it a complicated personality. Jealousy, control, checking feels like love. Psychologically, this makes sense. Acknowledging a red flag destroys hope, and hope often outweighs self-respect. Plus, when emotionally involved, brain areas linked to attachment and dopamine make rational judgment temporarily weaker. So the pattern repeats because we close our eyes where we should have walked away. A real-life example, Megan Fox. She openly said that for years she found herself in emotionally unstable and painful relationships, repeating the same dynamics: strong attachment, jealousy, emotional swings, fear of loss. In interviews, she admitted it wasn't just about her partners, but about her own attachment patterns and the habit of confusing tension with love. Her story shows an important point. Even successful, strong, and attractive people can get stuck in repeating patterns until they realize the problem isn't just who is there, it's the relationship model they unconsciously choose.
How to break the pattern and stop choosing the same story with different faces. First step, notice the pattern. Not "I'm unlucky," but "I'm in the same dynamic again." This shifts focus from blame to awareness. Second step, learn to distinguish attraction from anxiety. If desire comes from tension, fear of loss, proving worth, or earning love, it's not love, it's an old pattern being activated. Third step, slow down. Most toxic scenarios move fast, intensity, drama, a sense of destiny. Conscious slowing lets your rational mind catch up with emotions. And the hardest part, choose the unfamiliar. Sometimes healthy relationships initially feel calm, safe, and respectful, not passionate. That's a sign your script is finally starting to change. So what do we have in the end? People change partners, cities, strategies, but rarely change the internal script that drives their choices. Ask yourself, are you truly seeking love or just replaying familiar pain because it's easier than the unknown?